Kill, spread death and destruction as they destroy, and we still do as we are told. Well, they make laws and pass bills, brainwashed by everything around us. All we see.
This is Steve Zelser with WorkWeek, and the struggle in the Middle East, the struggle in Israel, Palestine, is now at the front burner in the United States. And the United States has 2 aircraft carriers and an armada to the Middle East to supposedly protect Israel, while at the same time today, Gaza, a population of over 2 million, are basically without services and facing destruction. And joining us today is Larry Goldbetter, and he's president of the National Writers Union. Maybe you can start by saying who the National Writers Union is, Larry, and why your union and yourself are taking up this issue of what's going on in Israel and Palestine.
The National Writers Union is a union of about 1,300 freelance journalists and media workers, book authors, poets, writers of all kinds. And we've been in business for quite a while, and we're an affiliate of the International Federation of Journalists. Internationalism has always been a big component of our outlook. And we are fraternal unions with the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate. And we have, proudly taken a lead in standing up to Israeli aggression, including the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh. And unfortunately, not a lot of unions have been present in the past at those types of events in the U.S. I think that has a possibility of changing now with this, horrific attack by Hamas, and then the even more horrific collective punishment being carried out by the Israelis with the support of the U.S. government.
And the AFL-CIO, along with the U.S. government, were for the formation of the State of Israel. They supported that, and they call themselves Zionists, the leadership of the AFL-CIO. What does that mean, that the AFL-CIO and other union leadership call themselves Zionist?
Well, I mean, I think the leadership of the AFL-CIO for quite some time has been an agent of the U.S. State Department, and has always supported U.S. foreign policy, even as recent, through the Vietnam War and through all of the wars in the Middle East. It's funny you should mention that. I was at a meeting last week of the New York City Jewish Labor Committee, and it was...
What is the New York Jewish Labor Committee?
I'm not exactly sure, but I got an invitation, so I went, and it was chaired by Stuart Applebaum, the president of RWDSU, and Randy Weingarten of the AFT. And basically, they were trying to get Jewish progressive labor leaders on board for this onslaught in Gaza, and praising Biden, praising, we have to unite. There's nothing more we can do. This is so outrageous. We have to have full support. And the one thing it kind of made clear to me is that, in case people had questions, is that war is union business. That no imperialist power can carry out a war for any sustained period of time without either the active or passive support of their workers. And that's what the Jewish Labor Committee was trying to organize, which really lit a fire under me to do the opposite, to try and organize opposition to this war, and among labor leaders. And tonight we'll be hosting a meeting online for labor notes that will include representatives from other unions on developing an approach to calling for an end to this.
And the AFL-CIO, of course, is supporting Israel, but also it has set up this thing, the Solidarity Center, which takes $75 million a year from the National Endowment for Democracy, a U.S. government agency for international operations in 62 countries. What is this Solidarity Center? You would think that, for example, Shireen Abu Khaleh would be getting support. She was an American Palestinian journalist who was killed, assassinated. Where did the AFL-CIO stand in that? Even the CWA, which is
As far as I know, they were silent. And the U.S. government has been silent. The AFL-CIO has been silent. The UN has been silent. And of course, the Israelis have been silent. Nobody has investigated her murder.
And this is not new. Journalists, why don't you talk about the attack on journalists in Palestine, in Israel, and how they've been targeted? This is a war crime, targeting journalists, but apparently when it comes to Israel, they have an exception to prosecution.
Yeah, Israel has a long history of targeting Palestinian media workers and media outlets. And in this current upsurge, I think 10 journalists have been killed so far. 2 are missing that we know of. And more than 50 media offices have been destroyed. And those are all very targeted events. And there was, of course, the journalists that were killed and wounded in Lebanon in a car that was clearly targeted by the Israelis and clearly identified as a press vehicle, everybody in it wearing press vests. So this is an ongoing tactic of theirs.
Well, also the United States bombed in Iraq a building of journalists.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say Israel is not the exception, but the United States itself
For sure.
is involved in
For
attack
sure.
on journalists. And you say that this is time may be different. I know that at the San Francisco Labor Council, Liz Schuler and her supporters sent a letter to the Labor Council saying you can't even discuss the boycott of Israel. That's off the table, and that was used by the officials, the leadership of the Labor Council, to shut down even a discussion and debate in the labor movement. It sounds like even having a discussion and debate in the labor movement is a real battle because of the kind of bureaucratic top-down structure of these unions.
Yeah, we were formerly an affiliate of the UAW. We were a UAW local, and few years ago, during one of these uprisings, 2 locals, especially the University of California local, passed BDS resolutions, and the International Union actually met, the International Executive Board met and reversed the votes of the locals who had voted to support BDS. And this time, you can just get away with that for so long. This time, I think there's going to be more vocal opposition, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, one of the things the UAW leadership said at that time is they had members producing weapons and equipment for Israel, and that would affect their members. But at the same time, with South Africa, there were Arab American auto workers who marched in Detroit, saying that they should sell the bonds, and they benefit. I mean, the U.S. military budget, close to $1 trillion a year, the 800 bases around the world. It seems that's part of the United States, and a major part of the United States, the military-industrial complex.
Absolutely. And the whole issue of jobs, I mean, it's such a hollow argument, such a nationalist hollow argument. If Caterpillar is built, had contracts with Israel to knock down Palestinian homes, and so the UAW didn't want people criticizing Caterpillar. I mean, it's just part of their pro-boss, at least the old leadership's pro-boss, pro-America outlook.
Well, the Biden administration and the leadership of the AFL-CIO say they're for a 2-state solution, that they want a partner that they can get in that would support a 2-state solution. You don't think that that's feasible?
I don't think it's true. They've had every opportunity for decades now to try and make that happen, and they've done everything to undermine it. And I mean, personally, I have my feelings. I think South Africa could have been a great model, but where they dismantled apartheid, not with two states, but with one. And I think, the unity of Jewish and Palestinian workers is kind of like the bedrock of anything moving forward. Without that, I don't see it happening. And right now, that seems a long way off.
Well, you began by saying that workers have the power to end war. How would workers end this war? I mean, it's not just the war in Israel. There's a war in Ukraine. Billions of dollars are going to that. There's billions are going to Asia. We're trying to militarize. We are militarizing Japan, South Korea. It seems like we're going towards world war.
Yeah, I think we're going towards world war. And, this is my personal opinions, not my union's opinions. But I think in the past, we've seen world wars turn into their opposite, turn into revolutionary upsurges. And it happened after World War I, it happened after World War II. And I think in the long term, that's our hope for this coming war. I don't think there's any avoiding it because they're on the fast track. And this is a very dark night, a very complicated time for workers around the world. And we're going to suffer more before this is done. But any solution has to start with international solidarity, that we're not going to kill each other for the profits of our bosses, no matter who they are, whether it's in the US, in Russia, in China, or Ukraine, or wherever, that workers have to unite and ultimately turn their guns around. I mean, you could see in Israel right now, if there were a revolutionary movement of any kind, the population has totally lost confidence in the government. The government has created a huge blunder, and people have no confidence in that government anymore. But they don't have an alternative. That's what's lacking right now, is the alternative.
So there's a growing strike wave in the United States of UAW, SAG-AFTRA. There's a whole question of AI threatening millions of workers and their jobs. It seems that this strike wave is growing, and more and more workers are involved in it. What is the strike wave that workers are going in? How is that connected to this crisis of war in the Middle East?
Well, workers have to pay for these wars. And I think, as you stated earlier, more and more is going into the military budget, and workers' wages are falling further and further behind. And there's a certain, the mood of the workers is changing. And there's a lot more anger and determination and a little bit better leadership. I wouldn't say qualitatively better leadership yet, but new leadership in some cases. And, these strikes are still pretty much under control, I would say. I describe it as the union leaders having a tiger by the tail, and they're trying to, on the one hand, let the tiger fight, and on the other hand, try and not let it get out of control. But I think it's certainly a promising sign. It's not automatically linked to having a big anti-war sentiment, because it's all very kind of localized. We got to get our raise, we have to get our concessions back, but it does create the possibility to make the link between imperialist war and workers paying the price for it. Who's paying for these wars? And
you have a situation politically where there is no mass working class party. You have the Democrats and Republicans. In fact, they want to get the Congress going again so they can provide more money for the war. That seems to be the high priority. I mean, we have people homeless, we have people without health care, but they want to get the Congress going so they can give more billions of dollars.
Exactly.
War.
Exactly.
The idea of a labor party, a working class party, it seems working people don't have a political alternative, and that really presents a real problem, especially with the rise of fascism in this country.
Exactly right. And that's why the short-term future is very dangerous and not very bright, because that alternative doesn't exist. But quite frankly, I mean, I think you have to throw in there, where is the squad? Where's Bernie on this? People have kind of been very kind of quiet about the war in the Middle East, and nobody's really ready to step out there and face the fire, the friendly fire of the Democrats in taking on this question. So I think our strength really is on the job and in our unions, more so than in the electoral process. Right now, you could see already everybody lining up behind Biden because you can't let Trump win again. And any kind of a third party, any kind of an alternative is squashed, not by the fascists, but by the liberals. And Bernie's campaigns were continuously undermined by Hillary and the Democratic National Committee. So I don't think that's our strong suit. I think our strong suit is where we are every day with our coworkers and in organizations that we can fight for the political leadership within those organizations.
And you say you're having a meeting tonight of trade unions from around the country. UE is involved, and other unions. A member of the executive board of the UAW is involved. What do you hope to come out of it? And how can workers who are opposed to wars, not just in Israel, but also in Russia and Asia, come together politically? And how can they organize, since it seems like there's a hardcore in the trade union bureaucracy who say we're not going to talk about it? I mean, in fact, all the money that's going to work could be going to social services, could be going to healthcare, could be going to education, but that doesn't even be a debate in the labor movement.
Right. And it never seriously has been. So, I mean, I think this is a very, to say that it's a overwhelming task would be an understatement, but you have to start where you are and do what you can where you are. I was interviewed on Al Jazeera last week, and the moderator asked me like the same question 4 different ways. How can we stop Israel from killing journalists? Well, the fact is you can't. Not now, not today. But you have to build something that can. And that's, as long as they can act with impunity, and as long as our bosses can act with impunity and get away with it, you can't stop them. There's no magic pill. You have to organize, and you have to organize around international solidarity is the first thing. We're not going to kill our brothers and sisters for someone else's profits. And, I mean, that really has to be the starting point. Racism and international solidarity. I don't see any shortcuts.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for joining us. We've been talking with Larry Goldbetter, president of the National Writers Union, and also convener of a meeting of labor people talking about what working people in the union should do about this growing danger of the destruction of Gaza and a genocidal attack on the people of Palestine in Israel. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.